How did the CEO of arguably the most important company in Silicon Valley get usurped overnight? OpenAI was on an absolute tear, leading the world in AI advancements, worth almost $90 billion and tapped to be the next trillion-dollar mega company. And yet, in just one chaotic weekend, we saw that evaporate as almost every employee threatened to quit. It was perhaps the fastest destruction of shareholder value in startup history. In the most shocking news in Silicon Valley since Steve Jobs was fired by Apple in 1985, Sam Altman was ousted by the board of OpenAI just days after its first wildly successful developer conference. And just like how Steve Jobs was then forced to start its own company before eventually making a triumphant return to Apple in 1997, Sam immediately began speaking with investors about launching a new AI company, right before being reinstated as the CEO of OpenAI. But while Apple took a decade to bring Steve back, OpenAI's board took less than 24 hours to reconsider its decision. In a wild few days that's pitted the Silicon Valley illuminati against each other. But just how did we get here? And how did OpenAI mess up so badly? Let's dig in. The story starts with Sam. Before becoming the poster boy of AI, he had, by all accounts, the kind of unremarkable upbringing that many others share. He grew up in a middle-class household in the Midwest before dropping out of Stanford to start his own startup, Looped, which, despite raising $30 million in venture capital, failed to find product market fit. Since then, however, his ascent has been stratospheric. He joined Y Combinator as a partner before, very surprisingly to Silicon Valley elites, being named the president at just 28 years old. He now found himself at the helm of one of Silicon Valley's most powerful institutions, and arguably the venture capital fund that has managed to capture the greatest network effects in the industry. He didn't just stop at inheriting this role though. He aggressively expanded the already wide scope of YC to take on hundreds of startups in every cohort, while raising a massive $700 million continuity fund to invest in its alumni. He also launched YC Research, a sort of spiritual predecessor to OpenAI in some ways. Mark Andreessen said, "Under Sam, the level of YC's ambition has gone up 10 times. In doing so, Sam became one of the leading voices of the entire startup ecosystem and was named the best investor under the age of 30. In 2015, while still leading YC, Sam founded OpenAI. Incredibly, even as a nonprofit research institution, OpenAI raised $1 billion right out of the gates from Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, and others. There wasn't a ton of noise from the group for the first few years as OpenAI was very heads down on the research. But in 2019, Sam made the transition from YC to joining OpenAI full-time. It was a very non-obvious move at the time, as joining this non-profit on the surface would seem to take Sam out of the limelight and the commercial success of YC. But that would clearly shift a few years later with the launch of OpenAI's GPT-3 model and ChatGPT, which became the fastest growing product of all time, much quicker to reach 100 million users than Facebook, Google, and TikTok. The emergent capabilities of ChatGPT to replicate human-like conversation, pass the bar exam, and seemingly bring to life dead celebrities shocked the world. By now, Sam became the poster boy for AI, and arguably the it man at the center of all Silicon Valley. He graced the cover of magazines, being named one of Time's most influential 100 people in the world, and was at the center of congressional hearings about the potential dangers of AI. By his own assessment, he's been more successful and influential than his wildest dreams. Building on the strength of ChatGPT, Sam has followed the playbook for how to take a product and turn it into a Google-scaled generational platform. OpenAI has launched an API for third-party developers, created an enterprise version with security, privacy, and single sign-on, and in the ultimate "you've made it" category, started a developer conference, where they announced a new GPT-4 turbo model that's substantially more powerful and cheaper, a new API for developers to create their own assistant agents, and new multimodal capabilities spanning vision, images, and text-to-speech. Now, all of this together has made the announcement of Sam's firing all the more shocking. Just 2 days after this inaugural developer conference, while the tech world was still running high from the buzz, the board dropped a bombshell that Sam would be fired, saying they had lost confidence in his ability to continue leading OpenAI because he was not consistently candid in his communications with the board. The world went crazy speculating the real reason behind Sam's firing. Everything from lurid personal scandals to the discovery of true AGI that spooked the board into wanting to slow down. But what eventually came out is a difference in opinion around the central mission of OpenAI as a non-profit entity. Sam clearly has taken OpenAI in the direction of the next Google or Facebook of this AI platform shift, with OpenAI already generating some $1 billion a year in revenue. Meanwhile, much of the board, including OpenAI co-founder Ilya and two others, Tasha McCauley and Helen Toner, both of whom apparently have connections to effective altruism, felt the company had diverged too far from its nonprofit mission, And the developer day was the final straw.
The mission statement of OpenAI is quite literally to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. In the past, we've been worried about the extreme power of technology like social media that can be easily abused when concentrated in the hands of a few gatekeepers like Mark Zuckerberg or Google.
This is the power to rewrite history. It's the power to rewrite society, to reprogram what people learn and what they think. This is a godlike power. It is a totalitarian power.
It used to be the winners. The winners wrote history. Now it's the AI writes history.
Yeah, you ever see the meme where Stalin is like erasing people from history? That is what the AI will have the power to do. And just like social media, it's in the hands of a handful of tech oligarchs who may have bizarre views that are not in line with most people in society.
They have views. They have their views.
Maybe the new technology gatekeeper we need to be worried about is OpenAI. It's telling that Elon Musk said he sold his shares and isn't involved in OpenAI anymore.
Maybe OpenAI is in danger of becoming the very thing that Elon has warned against. A tool that has unprecedented power for abuse, now in the hands of a potentially for-profit acting entity. And the pace of OpenAI's commercialization under Sam had become a red flag for AI safety advocates at the company. Sam also mentioned a new discovery breakthrough within OpenAI just a couple weeks before the firing, and was reportedly trying to raise billions for a separate startup to produce AI chips. So even though Sam's firing had nothing to do with malfeasance, according to the OpenAI board, the speed at which Sam was sprinting in multiple directions to advance AI was breathtaking. That ultimately seems to be at the center of why the OpenAI board voted to oust Sam Altman in what has been called a coup. Helen Toner, an academic on the board, in particular seemed to have issues with Sam, publishing a paper criticizing OpenAI's safety measures and praising its top competitor Anthropic for doing better. She even said at one point that shutting OpenAI down would be the best way to fulfill their mission of protecting society. And yet somehow the majority of the board still sided with Helen in favor of removing Sam, and without any clear smoking gun or concrete evidence of misconduct. And it was handled with the same kind of backstabby, backroom secrecy and surprise of a coup. The board apparently told Sam Altman over a Google Hangout 30 minutes before the announcement, and his co-founder Greg Brockman 5 minutes beforehand. Microsoft, who invested $10 billion into OpenAI and owns 49% of the company, was told just before the announcement, and OpenAI employees were kept completely in the dark. Shortly after Sam was ousted, he tweeted, "I love the OpenAI family so much," which prompted a mass retweeting by other OpenAI employees in a scene reminiscent of Spartacus. It was clear OpenAI employees were behind Sam, and Sam was reportedly already considering launching a new AI startup that undoubtedly would have attracted many of the best OpenAI employees. Venture capitalists like myself would have showered him with money. And in the state of California, non-competes that prevent employees like Sam from launching a competitive company are not enforced. So there's actually nothing stopping Sam from just launching OpenAI 2.0 and poaching all of his former employees to join the company. And given Sam's ridiculous ambition that propelled OpenAI from nothing to a leading generative AI company worth almost $100 billion, it's almost certain that the best and most ambitious employees would join Sam, effectively hollowing out OpenAI. Meanwhile, at the same time, powerful investors Sequoia and Tiger were already pushing the company to bring Sam back. Thrive Capital, who was set to invest money at an $86 billion valuation, but hadn't wired their capital yet, was also compelling OpenAI's board to reinstate Sam. And not to be left out, Satya Nadella at Microsoft was reportedly furious over Sam's sudden firing, and was at the center of mediating conversations to bring Sam back to OpenAI. Beyond owning 49% of OpenAI, Microsoft also structured a huge discount on computing resources for OpenAI, which gives them huge leverage over the company. OpenAI would potentially be unable to run its services like ChatGPT profitably without the support of Microsoft. So it's no surprise that the board quickly capitulated and agreed to rehire Sam just days after firing him. The final act of this bizarre Shakespearean drama has been the stalemate between the board and Sam, who has demanded the resignation of the board before he rejoins the company. In a hilarious moment, Sam can be seen here wearing a guest badge at OpenAI, discussing terms with the board. In the final hours of negotiating, this is where things got really wacky. The board called Sam's bluff on his demands and hired former Twitch CEO Emmett Shear as the interim CEO for OpenAI. It's a shocking turn of events that would seem like company suicide by the board, going against the wishes of its own employees, partners like Satya at Microsoft, developers who just got excited about Sam's announcements, and even the interim CEO Mira, who had tried to win Sam and Greg Brockman back. And in the ultimate judo move, Satya Nadella announced that Sam and his co-founder Greg Brockman would be joining Microsoft, along with several other key OpenAI lieutenants to head up a new advanced AI unit within the company. In the process, Satya effectively will get the core team of OpenAI for free, without having to acquire the company for billions of dollars. Microsoft added more than $100 billion of market cap to its stock when they announced they hired Sam. If chaos is indeed a ladder, at the last minute, Satya saw the opportunity to climb it. The large majority of OpenAI employees have already signed a petition that said they'll leave the company if Sam isn't reinstated. And that even includes OpenAI co-founder Ilya, the apparent mastermind behind the coup, who stated he deeply regrets his role in firing Sam. So it's no surprise that the board finally capitulated and resigned, paving the way for Sam's triumphant return to OpenAI. But this time, with experienced governance that should ensure stability. Instead of academics and tech policy advocates without any real-world experience, the newly reformed board will be helmed by Salesforce CEO Bret Taylor, along with former Harvard President Larry Summers and Quora CEO Adam D'Angelo, the lone survivor from the prior board. So what can we learn from this failed coup? Well, it's clearly underscored the importance of alignment between the founder CEO and its board. Many startups, not just to pick on OpenAI, just choose whatever investors give them the highest valuation, and then accept whoever that board member is that comes along with the money. In reality, many more startups should think first about their board member and then the economics of the deal second. The other thing we learned in this process is that even a board of directors is accountable to someone, namely shareholders, and by extension, employees, customers, and the public to some degree. At the end of the day, this is a stark reminder that lack of mission clarity can tear apart a company, as OpenAI's convoluted corporate structure led to conflicting motivations and incentives that led to the current breakdown. The net beneficiary of a power struggle between OpenAI's two ideological factions. One group following the classic Silicon Valley playbook of Google and Facebook before it of rapid platform buildup and commercialization. The other group steeped in fears that AI represents an existential risk to humanity and must be controlled at all costs. For years, the two sides managed to coexist until OpenAI released the most successful product of all time in ChatGPT. That forced the two sides of OpenAI into a head-on collision, supercharging both this race to create a platform from the product for profit to pay for the unprecedented amount of compute required, and the need for the company to mitigate the technology risks. But to the board's defense, the original mission of OpenAI was indeed not to make a profit, but to advance humanity through AI. So in some sense, the board was just doing its job. And I believe, unfortunately, while this drama was incredibly entertaining and packed 5 years worth of tech developments into one weekend, ultimately, I do think this is a loss for the tech startup world. As a developer, building on top of a platform like OpenAI always brings risks, and instability exacerbates that. And while you could argue that this is a victory for AI doom and gloomers, in my opinion, we're slowing down the development of the next big tech platform, like the steam engine or the internet, all of which are capable of great harm, like running people over in a vehicle or catfishing people online, but for which I think we'd all agree the benefits vastly outweigh the risks. ChatGPT was one such AI innovation which had the potential to spawn a platform from the explosive adoption, much like AWS was born out of Amazon's immensely successful retail business. So it's largely a great outcome for the tech world that we packed years of chaotic drama in just a few days, instead of waiting the full decade it took Steve Jobs to return to Apple. If you like getting this inside take on Silicon Valley, check out this video where I share my candid thoughts on what it's actually like to be a VC in the Bay, searching for the next OpenAI. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.